Again, ladies and gentlemen, this is NFC Now. We're about to be joined here. We are joined here. And you had to tell us how to pronounce your last name correctly.
Yeah, because David is not doing it justice. It's Chamale, so it's just like a tamale, but with a ch.
Ladies and gentlemen, that is Mitchell Chamale.
There we
Thank you
go,
for joining us
Julian.
here on NFC Now, man. How you living?
Doing all right, man. How you guys doing?
And Julian doesn't know a hell of a lot about you, so I kind of pumped you up a little bit, saying, one of my favorite promoters. We've only got to work together once down there in Fort
Yeah.
Lauderdale, just because Florida is kind of a whole different island from the southeast from us a little bit. You run the top show in Florida, and you get that fun because you get to go at 6-7 different cities. So
Yeah.
tell Julian a little bit and people watching, about Combat Night in Mitchell.
For sure, man. So I myself am a professional fighter. Signed with one championship currently, 8-3 as a pro. I realized really early on that you don't make no fucking money fighting. So a couple years into it, I said if I really want to do this and I really want to make a run at being a fighter, you're gonna have to find a way to make some income that involved with the sport. And me and my late business partner Josh the Man passed away roughly 6 years ago. Started Combat Night, and it's pretty funny that how well we did it and how good we were at it. Turns out that like we just kind of took everything we hated from events and got rid of it, and everything we wish they had did, we tried to do it. Obviously we knew some things just didn't make sense money wise, but we still do that today. We've always kept our fighters number one. I tell every fan, sponsor, I don't care who you are, like, yo, if you're not a fighter, you're not number one. It's just sorry. The show doesn't happen without our athletes. And we've always kept that mantra that, fighters first, and it's brought us a long way. So we're at 150 events here in Florida. We've got 3 coming up back to back, November 5th, November 12th, November 19th across the state. We got Jacksonville, November 5th, Fort Lauderdale, November 12th, and Fort Pierce, November 19th, teaming up with Rise of a Warrior, what y'all were just talking about teaming up with promotions. Rise of a Warrior is like an OG in the game. They were doing shows as soon as amateur MMA became illegal in Florida. They were the very first event to have one. And we went down there for a show to corner a guy, Ralph Valdez. And we left there. And before we had just went to like South Georgia, you know what I'm saying? Like shows in Moultrie and Douglas that were in pavilions. And we were like, holy shit, these guys really know how to do a show. It's like a nice event. Everyone's dressed up. We want to do something like this. And it was funny, we were high as hell. I'm going to keep it real with you guys. We were high as hell on the drive back, and I had been saving up some money, and Josh was like, yo, yeah, I mean, we could do this, but we don't have the money to do this shit. Like, it takes a lot of money. And I was like, I got $15,000 in my savings account. It's my life savings. Let's do it. And I'll never forget, man. I woke up Monday morning with a text message from Josh, and he was like, you ready to get started on this? And I had the worst feeling in my stomach. I was like, oh, why did I say that? Oh, I opened my damn mouth. I didn't really get high or anything. Like, I was very rarely like did anything like that. But when I was with Josh, I would smoke. And I was like, oh man, I fucked up. I'm about to lose my life savings. But here we are 150 events later, and being pretty successful at the moment. So it worked out for us.
Rest in paradise to Josh, correct?
Appreciate that. Yes.
Rest in paradise to Josh. And big respect to you, man, for just putting on for the fighters first, man. I thought that was a very interesting thing, man, being that you are a fighter. You talked about putting on shows because of things like putting on shows opposite of things that you just didn't like when you were fighting on shows. Could you go a little bit more about the things that you didn't like and things that you obviously focus on when you do a show?
For sure, man. I mean, a lot of it's honestly still happening all across the board, even at the highest levels. There are guys like David Oblas, I have experience with him. There's guys like Dan Donaldson down at Rise of a Warrior, that run really respectable shows and take care of the athletes. But I would fight for a show and I'd be getting paid $300 and $300, and I'd be like, yo, can I get an event t-shirt? They'd be like, yeah, $20 at the booth. And I'm like, oh, okay, bet. I'm about to go spend, 5% of my fucking purse to buy a shirt that looks like ass anyways. Your grandma designed it, and I'm gonna have to go pay for this money just so I have this memory. Or, hey, can I get fight footage? And it's like, oh yeah, it'll be on YouTube next week. 5 months later, I fought for, no, not, I don't, I know y'all fuck with Brett Moses up there and Fight Party.
Me and him used to hate each other. Now we're on speaking terms, somewhat friendly, but yeah, I used to hate him and he used to hate me.
Yo, if you're on speaking terms, tell him I want my footage from beating Juan Furta. Yo, I went to Georgia 2 weeks after my mom passed. I fought their hometown hero. I got booed. I got cussed out. I got shit thrown at me. I got all kinds of stuff. And I wanted my fight footage. I was like, yo, let me get my fight footage. It was a huge fight for me. I remember I got on the mic to like thank my give the respect to my mom and say this fight was for her. And they started booing me. And I was like, fuck y'all. Fuck it. I fucking hate Georgia. But I messaged him for like a year about this fight footage, and he kept saying, I'll get it to you. I'll get it to you. I'll get it to you. Never got it. And then I saw Juan Perth that made a highlight video with the fight footage. So I'm like, yo, the fight footage is out there, but of course Juan ain't sending it to me. But it's stuff like that. It's like, man, what I always tell my team, and Richard Cox, best matchmaker. I know y'all are gonna feel the same way about y'all's matchmakers.
We should.
You should. He's the best matchmaker in the game. Yeah. Ramsey White, my operations manager, I got a really good team, and I always remind them. I tell them every single time, like, yo, we do this. We've done this 150 times as an event. But for these guys that are fighting, like, this is their moment. This is their special moment. This is like the world to them. I'm getting goosebumps even thinking about that moment. Making that walk. Everything needs to be perfect. Their name needs to be spelled right on posters. They need to have good graphics. If they want a shirt, give them a shirt. Give them 2. Give them 3. I don't care. Like, it's so crazy to me that people forget what we're doing. Like, we're creating moments, and that I don't take lightly. We're fucking the Disneyland of MMA. We are literally creating moments for these people that they're gonna remember for the rest of their life. Whether it's a fighter's first fight, an amateur guy, whether it's maybe it's Cole Miller who made his amateur debut or his pro debut, but that's a memory for Cole. He'll never forget that. And now he's in the UFC and he's done with that, has his own gym, but he's gonna hold that memory near and dear. And it's up to us to make sure that's a good memory. A lot of my pro fight memories are trash, like straight up. I don't have footage to even like look at them, or I don't have pictures for some of them. And it's like, it's all that stuff that really, rubbed me the wrong way. And it just didn't sit right. So
you took a fight in Asia for one. Didn't you do that on 1 day's notice or 2 days while you're there cornering a guy?
Yeah, I was there
and you jumped in.
Yeah, I was there for my homie Troy Worthen, and he actually fought his opponent. John Lineker's opponent got COVID, and then they bumped Troy to the main event. And then they came and asked me. They saw my record. They realized I was a fighter, and they were like, I was at weigh-ins eating a bowl of noodles, and they were like, "Yo, you want to fight?" And I was like, "Hell yeah, I want to fight." And I always told people, like, I felt like I manifested that. I've been saying it for like 2 years now. Everyone asks, you gonna fight again? You gonna fight again? I was like, yeah, I'll fight again. One day I'll catch myself in another country. I'll have my mouthpiece and I'll have my cup, and it'll happen. And sure enough, I have my mouthpiece, I have my cup, and it happened. Got to fight the number five guy in the world over there. He was undefeated. He whooped my ass, but that motherfucker knows he was in a fight.
Stay ready, man. We love it. Again, this
for
is
sure.
Mitchell Chamale, not Tamale, Chamale, joining us here on NFC Now. Our big question that we've been going through this entire show, and even standing back to last Monday's show, is whether or not fighters should get paid if they do not actually step into the cage to compete. In the sense that they make weight, they do what they're supposed to do, but they decide their opponent doesn't make weight, and they decline to take the fight. What are your thoughts?
So I haven't watched the other episodes to know what people are saying. So if I'm going against the grain with everybody else, I apologize, but they deserve to get paid 100%. I mean, they did the work, they did their job. That show money is for showing up. It's not for fighting. It's for showing up, and they showed up to do their job. And if they choose not to fight, it's cool. I've had guys that they lost their opponent the week of, like Monday, and we couldn't find them a solid replacement. We couldn't find anything. And in that instance, I still pay them. I've had guys that were going to be traveling in, and I'm like, yo, I just saved $500 on their travel and their hotel, the insurance of the bout, all these other things. I can pay this dude $750. I can pay this dude whatever his show money was. Like, that's not breaking me. And if he was coming from out of state anyways, he probably wasn't selling tickets regardless. So it's like, for me, why wouldn't I pay that guy? And that goes, like I said, it's happened as much as like where someone loses the fight the week of. Now, if you lose the fight the week of and we give you a suitable replacement and you choose to say no, nah, we ain't going to pay you.
That was going to be my follow-up question is if you have someone for them and they turn it down, do they still get paid?
Nah, because fighters supposed to fight. And if it makes sense.
Well, what about at the weigh-in? If their guy's only a pound or 2 pounds over and you say they're supposed to fight and they turn down that fight saying, no, I'm going to take Mitchell's show money instead of fighting my opponent that's 2 pounds overweight.
Man, we haven't had that situation happen yet, to be honest with you. I'm probably going to be inclined to pay them still. I might not now I'll be real with you too. I might not want to work with them again, you know, and that's my prerogative as a business owner. I can make that decision and I can say, yo, I just don't want to work with that guy. Because if it makes sense, right? I also get it from the fighter's perspective, like, yo, we only get one shot at this shit. You get one pro record, and that's it. So if you don't feel like maybe his camp went wrong, maybe something wasn't right with it, maybe he had a bad weight cut and he still finished his cut, and he's like, well, damn, this guy didn't have to go through what I had to go through. He cut it short. I get that, and I always like analyze situations and make my decisions kind of like my president's in the moment. So I don't know how I would handle it, but he would be paid for sure. As far as moving forward and working with him in the future, I'm not 100%. Well, my question, where I have a dilemma is ticket sales.
I was about to ask you about that. Do you refund tickets?
Normally, yeah, like 100% we do, but I haven't had a situation where I had to pay somebody and they had tickets sold too and they want a refund on the tickets, because that's weird. I mean, I probably still pay them and have to refund the tickets. Like, I just eat that shit. It doesn't, my gut and my belly is like, don't do that. But my heart and my brain is like, yo, that's the right thing to do.
Yeah.
Is this because you were a fighter?
Maybe it's because I'm a fighter. I don't know if that's the specific reason. My dad raised me. He was a piece of shit in a lot of ways, but he instilled a lot of really good values in me, like hard work and being a man of your word. And I feel like that kind of falls down to being a man of my word. If I'm in a contract with this guy and I asked him to show up in a certain way and he did his job and he did everything correctly, I don't want to punish that guy for doing what he was supposed to do. So I got to do what I was supposed to do. So maybe that is why I'm a fighter, because I have that belief, but I don't believe that because I'm a fighter, I feel that way, if that makes sense.
So just to be clear, you say the show is to show up and make weight.
That's how I feel.
I hate you.
Sorry. You feel like the show is to get in the cage, right?
Well, I think it takes away the integrity of the sport a little bit. I think if we're giving guys an easy way out the day of weigh-ins, the day before weigh-ins, even like you do the week of, I think we're giving guys an easy way out. That might actually destroy the integrity of the sport and give those guys and their other gym mates, hey, if that guy's 1 pound over at weigh-ins, fuck it, I'm taking my money and running. And then you destroy it for the fans. That's kind of my opinion out there.
And I think you do too, Oblas. I think you work with a different class of fighters. You've built your promotion from the ground up. You didn't build it with a bunch of money. You didn't have a big bankroll, and that's how you built it. You built it from the ground up, and that's hard. You see it. We've seen it. How many promotions have we seen come on the scene with a lot of money and they're flashing and doing all this shit? And because of the way we built our promotions, I just believe we have a better class of fighters, a better class of athletes and coaches. And I think the coaches and athletes that we work with, for the most part, are either, I think, they are trying to have fun with this shit. They're trying to, like, who cares? If they make it at UFC, they don't care. They're just trying to get in there and have fun and fight and do something, something different. B, they're trying to make like a bucket list thing, right? I want to be a pro athlete. Or C, they're trying to make it to the UFC, the Bellator, or the One. And I think if they fall into those three categories, they're fighting. And I feel like that's the class of athletes that we work with. Like, fuck, I'm gonna be real with you. Fuck $500. If I worked for 8 weeks and the $500, I had to spend $200 on medicals. Like, fuck that $500. I'm fighting, because that's what I came here to do, is to fight. So I think it's very rare that it might happen, but I don't think it'd ever be a strategy for the athletes that we work with. Now, if we're talking about some of these, these bullshit shows that are happening, I ain't gonna call no names out, but there's plenty of them out there that aren't doing the right things or treating the fighters like shit. Like, if you've been treated like shit for 8 weeks, you never got a fight poster. When you did, it looked like your grandma made it, and they're just treating you like trash. You never got tickets to sell. Your contract was signed at the fucking weigh-ins to begin with because you never got it in advance, and all these things that these bootleg promotions do. Yeah, I might say fuck y'all. Like, haha, it's my turn.
And I think, correct me if I'm wrong, was it you that called out, and hopefully no one's listening from their company, but was you called out Bellator for their warm-up match years ago?
Yeah, that was trash.
I remember those. You post a photo on there of some shitty-ass warm-up mats, and I was like, holy shit, Mitchell just called out Bellator.
Yo, I had no idea this was going to go viral. I couldn't believe it. I felt like we were warming up in a third world country. I was like, Bellator? Like, my fighter, I was there to corner an athlete, and he was so stoked to be making his debut in Bellator. It was this huge moment for him. And we get there, They got our warm-up area in the hot sun in Miami, like hottest of the hot sun. And they have puzzle mats on top of, no, it was cardboard boxes.
It was cardboard boxes.
On top of fucking grass. Meanwhile, right next to us is like a $2 million satellite truck that they're letting the VIPs go in and like drink and eat. And I'm like, you gotta be fucking kidding me. You gotta be kidding me. And I just made I thought it was a funny post. And you know what's funny is the VP of Bellator ends up calling me. Somehow got my contact information, calls me. And the first thing this idiot says is, you know, I don't want to like, you know, bore you with the details, but you know, there's a lot of things that go into making one of these events happen. I promise you, like, you know, us not having the match for the fighters is an easy mistake to make. And I was like, well, I don't want to bore you with the details, but I've run about 100 events, and I can promise you that no detail is too small that I can miss it when it comes to my athletes. And he was like, you do promotions too? And I was like, yeah. I was like, maybe you should have did a little research before you called me. And he didn't have nothing to say. He was like, he switched his whole tone and was like, no, you're right. Like, and I was like, yeah, you had a nice $2 million sat truck right next to the warm-ups. You couldn't have put a couple puzzle mats in there. You couldn't have got a trailer, $1,000 for the day. Like, I just don't understand that. Like, there's never going to be an excuse that any promoter can make to me or coach, anyone, about not taking care of their athletes, not having, you know, whatever they need for whatever. It's like, just, it blows my mind that people are literally risking life and limb, and you're going to treat them like trash.
Mitchell, just by hearing you talk, man, I would just go out on a limb and assume that some of the athletes that do compete in your promotion will probably do anything for you.
I got a real loyal group of friends. You know, I really consider a lot of these guys family. But yeah, I got a really solid group of guys, man. And yeah, I mean, I know Oblast does too. You know, me and him both. He's one of the few promoters that I really fuck with, and it's because he takes care of his athletes, man. I see it. I see the jokes, and like, yo, me and him both know, like, yo, you ain't getting UFC money or Bellator money. Well, maybe some Bellator money, because I know they don't always pay that great. But you ain't getting no UFC money with us or PFL money with us. But you're gonna be treated right. Like, you're gonna enjoy your experience, and we only want to be a part of your journey to get you to where you can make really good money. We're not here to hold you or keep. You know, I just had an athlete, Lucas Alexander, got the call to the UFC, short notice, 1 week. He was supposed to fight for me on November 5th, defend his 145-pound title. You know, all that stuff. And he hits me up like, yo, I got the call. And I was like, you're fucking kidding me. And he's like, yeah, but they said you have to release me in the MMA.TV registry so they can book my fight and get it to the Nevada State Athletic Commission. Yo, I called Richard right away and I was like, yo, release Lucas. Stop whatever you're doing. Release him. So, yeah, man, I love my athletes, and I really consider them friends and family for the most part. And like I said, man, it's built this crazy thing called Combat Night now. So it's.
And I'll have to text you later what we paid Doug Usher and Jared Gooden a couple weeks ago for what we titled the Fight of the Decade. Because in my opinion, that was definitely UFC or Bellator opening pay wage that we paid them. And Jared was about to walk away from the weigh-ins without taking the fight because he wanted $1,000 more. The contract said he was going to get $500 more at weigh-ins. His manager was sitting there saying he'd walk unless he got $1,000. So Doug Usher paid a $500, and then we covered the other $500 just to make the fight happen. So it was one of those interesting cases that led up to where we are now, talking about should fighters get paid or not get paid. And it's funny because when I saw you slam the other guy on Facebook today and asked you who it was, I didn't even have plans for you to come on the podcast tonight. And that's what made me think of, we got to get Mitchell on tonight to talk about fighter pay, because I knew you'd have input that might be a little bit different than mine, because I think we're both nice guys, but you are fighters first, where, you know, I'm fighters first and fighters second, maybe second. I don't know.
No, you take care of your guys, man. There's no doubt about it. Like, I see the love they give, you know, all the jokes and shit. Like, you don't be joking around with somebody if you're not the homie, you know what I'm saying? Like, and there's people, you know, I see these promotions try to be so business. And it's like, man, it's just that's not the business we're in. Like, it should be family. It should be love. It should be like showing support, because these guys are getting in there and getting their asses whooped for us. You know, like, we're setting that up. Like, even though I know they're doing it for the pay or to get to the next level and these other reasons, but at the end of the day, like, they're agreeing to do that for us. They could do that for anybody in the world, but they decided to choose us to do that. So I don't take that lightly.
People always ask me there's competing promoters to us, and I tell us there are. They usually come and go in under a year or two because they treat the fighters like garbage. They disrespect them. They run a shitty show. So we do have competition, but the competition usually takes care of itself pretty darn quickly out there.
Yeah, that's what I'm dealing with right now, man. The post you saw on Facebook is just that. And it's like people I used to work with pretty closely are like backhanding me and doing behind my back. And like they're telling people that are close to me and they're calling me. And like, I just keep hearing this bullshit. And finally, I'm like, you know what? Like, I got to make this public. I'm that person. I keep my whole life public. You know, the whole situation with my daughter and her being a micro preemie and the struggles we went through, I'm an open book. And I don't ever regret. I don't delete shit that I write. I don't delete stories that I make. I don't delete posts. Because if I say it, it's the truth as I see it. And if you can prove me wrong, I might apologize, but I still ain't deleting shit.
And that's sometimes the problem I have. I treat people so well and I give them so much information about what we do. I do get worried from time to time they are going to try to start their own thing. And the bad thing is then we're turning enemies. But like you, I think it's the way you run a show, the way you treat people, the way it's a business. And it doesn't even come down to money. It's just the venues, not even talking about the fighters, the venues would rather deal with a Mitchell and rather deal with a David Oblis than they've dealt with other promoters and they fucking hate it.
Oh, yeah.
Now, Mitchell, I got to ask, man, as I asked Tim Loy a little earlier, man, what is the benefit of working with somebody like David from a different promotion, from a different state?
Dude, a ton of benefit. I mean, number one, he's got a whole different pool of fighters than we have, and I have a whole different pool than he has. And, you know, when we had those I reach out to him probably like once every other month, like, yo, you got anybody for this? And, you know, I would say probably 50% of the time, nothing works out, but then there's the times it does work out, and that's just a lifesaver, man. It's a lifeline. I can't begin explain how valuable it is. You know, even with stuff like our belts or medals, or you know, we bounce our prices off of one another. Like
Pakistan,
yeah, Pakistan,
fuck China, fuck Pakistan.
Yeah,
I like the countries, but making the belts and the medals, they are a pain in the ass.
Yeah, headaches. But like, you know, if he got a guy hitting him up, like, yo, this guy said he did your belts, I can be like, nah, he's full of shit. Or like, he did, but he was trash. Don't use him. You know, and the same thing with like fighters. Like, hey man, this guy was a headache from start to finish. He wasn't professional. Like, I wouldn't use him. Like, if I see a guy on David Oblas's card that screwed us or no-showed us 2 times, 3 times in a row, and it's 3 weeks out, yo, you got time to find a new opponent, David. I'm gonna call you and be like, yo, don't use that guy. Trust me. Save yourself the headache. So it's really beneficial, man. And then you know, I think the guys know. If because like you said, the guys, they love me, they trust me, and I love and trust them. So they know I'm not going to send them to nobody. I brought my heavyweight Alton Meats to NFC to fight just 2 years ago, probably 3 years ago.
I remember that. Yeah.
So I love it. It's just, it benefits everybody. As long as you're working with the right people, you know, there are some, and this is like a 10% of the promoters out there that I can work with, because the other 90% of them are straight trash. Like, they're just trash. At the end of the day, they ain't about that life. They'll fuck over whoever. They'll rob their grandma if they could. So for me, it's like, when I find a guy like David Oblas, I hold on to that, and I'm not going to risk losing that relationship. So it's real valuable.
And you guys have a good couple of promoters in the state of Florida, and I don't even know all of them, but you've got Ross with Copa. That's Panama City, I think, maybe.
Nah, Lakeland, Polk County, my hometown. Yeah, he's in my hometown. This is how much I fuck with Ross. He's in my hometown where I grew up.
And you don't go there.
Stomping grounds. I don't go there. He started his events there first. It's just like, it's a respect thing. You know what I'm saying?
And then you've got Daniel with the Rise of the Warrior.
I love Dan Donaldson. Yep.
Yeah. I remember when I came to your show, he was the sanction body, which I thought was pretty damn cool. That you guys got allowed to do that. And then what all cities do you travel to?
We regularly visit Tallahassee, Jacksonville, Orlando, South Florida, Fort Lauderdale, Miami. And then we've done Fort Pierce. We've done Sarasota. And we're going to start going to Tampa here soon. Tampa, just a matter of time. I had a buddy out there that we were going to do a show at one point together, and then we kind of had a falling out, and he just like, I don't know, he lost his mind. So I'm like, fuck it. Well, we ain't boys, so I'm going to Tampa.
When's the next time we can look forward to you competing, bro?
Man, I want to compete soon. For a while, it was the COVID restrictions over in Singapore. It's as strict as they come. But I train every day. Like, if you look at my story, if you follow me on Instagram, I literally train every day. Today, I spent 3 hours at the gym, grind session, pro practice. I was sparring with guys that are fighting for me in a week. You know, I'm in there with the young bucks, getting it in, talking shit. Like, don't let the promoter whoop your ass, because you're going to hear about it. I'm going to talk about it.
See, that's the cool thing that you have over me And I could have done it years ago, as I never trained jiu-jitsu. I did for a month or two, but you get to train at all the different gyms in Florida. You get to walk in like a celebrity. You're the promoter, and you get to work with all of them. You know, I hardly go to a lot of the gyms in Atlanta, and I try to stay out of the gyms because sometimes they can be like barbershops almost. But you get to go to all the gyms and train with all the guys.
Yeah, it's great, man. Like I said, like that's invaluable to me too. And it's really not like I didn't start it out as a great business strategy. It's turned out to be an amazing one. When I was young and being an athlete and we're traveling to these different cities, I'm like, I got to get my own work in. I got to fight in 2 months. Like, we got an event, but I got to train. So I would ask the gyms, and I was always like real shy. Like, would you mind if I came and got some work in? And I would just train at all these different gyms, get these different looks. It benefited me so much. I grew as a martial artist so much because of everyone opening their doors to me and allowing me to come into their gym. And, I'm forever grateful for that. And then after I did that for like 3 or 4 years, I forget who it was, but they were like, yo, you're genius. And I was like, what are you talking about? And they're like, yo, training at all the gyms, like you're buddies with all the fighters now and da-da-da-da-da-da-da. And I was like, yeah, it's pretty smart.
Indeed, man. If you already didn't, you have a new Instagram follower in me after this dope dialogue, man. I really respect you, Mitchell. Chamale, not Tamale, Chamale.
There you go.
Yo, for just being a Fighters First promoter, man, and just putting on for just filling the gap from what you saw as a fighter and now as a promoter, giving other fighters that common courtesy that you would have liked as you were coming up, man. And I hope that everybody's getting their picture, their T-shirt, and just that moment. Because just like you, man, like I noticed that these fighters just want that moment.
Yeah, they deserve it, man.
They deserve it. After all that work, they deserve that moment, man. So shout out to you, man. We appreciate you for joining us here on NFC Now, David.
Don't ever come to Atlanta because you'll probably fucking put me out of business in a month.
Shut up.
So stay in Florida. Don't ever come to Atlanta. South Georgia, that's as high north as you can come. Yeah,
not a chance, man. I love you guys. Hey, if you ever want me to have it back on, I love the more that I can speak and have these opportunities to talk about the sport. I think it helps. I think these things help as well. We're getting things out in the open. We're discussing things. And I know the way I do things isn't always the best way or the right way. So I can always improve. So I love talking to guys like Oblas. I never have a conversation with him where I don't feel like I'm coming out of it with just a little bit more knowledge about the sport.
We should have a podcast that's dedicated to scumbag promoters and write down the stories that we've seen and then just have a podcast where we talk about them. We won't include names. We'll just tell the stories.
Yeah, I'm gonna be real with you. I'll include names. I don't give a fuck. Like, if
David, I feel like you drop names too. I feel like you'll drop a couple names too, Dave.
Man, Julien, you were lucky you didn't know me 15 years ago. 15 years ago, when he was talking about Brett Moses, I would put about Brett Moses everywhere on the internet. Fuck that guy. He's a sanctioned body. He's the promoter. He won't let me sanction. He won't let me promote fights. That's when I had to go to all legislator and get things changed. And that wasn't even Facebook. That was MySpace. I had to post shit every damn day on MySpace. And then I don't know if you remember the ISCF had a message board. Back then was message boards where you had to go post stuff and you could use a fake name. And everyone was like, Oblas is using a fake name. And I'd pop on there and say, no, I'm not. I'm using my real name. This is me being an asshole with my real name. Why would I use a fake name? So yeah, that was fun times back then. But,
sure.
And Mitchell, to your point, that's why we do NFC Now, man, to give the fighters, everybody associated with the National Fighting Championship and the people that are here, and even yourself, man, people that run different organizations around the country, a platform to go ahead and speak, man. It's important. And I just noticed just over the last couple of weeks of us doing this, every fighter that gets on here, they just appreciate the opportunity to get out and just share their story about their why. Because I think that's the most important to me as a journalist, somebody who rarely trains, but I just admire the fighters. Just going out there and just listening to their whys was what's most important.
That's what I just determined. Our next episode is going to be how fighters and promoters dealt with COVID. How you had to change your business plan as a fighter, a gym, or a promoter with COVID. Because Mitchell's probably got the best story in the United States. I'm going to hold it till next time we talk, but Mitchell was the first promoter in the country that ran a fight during COVID, which modeled the UFC coming to Florida with not a lot of people. I think a lot of people know that, but a lot of people don't. So
a lot of locals know it.
Mitchell became a local legend for running that show with no fans. But yeah, I think a next episode or two, let's talk to promoters, fighters, and managers that had to completely change their COVID scheme.
I like that. Hey, and before y'all let me go, you're cool with Brett Moses?
I'm not cool with him, but we talk.
Y'all talk. Just tell him, like, yo, you got to do me a solid. Find this fucking video.
I just wrote down I wrote down on my little notebook. I keep a notebook of everything I have to do every day, and I wrote down Mitchell Chamale versus Juan Puerta on that.
Yes.
So I'm going to message him tonight when we get off and ask him about that.
What's your Instagram, bro? I'm trying to follow you.
It's MACHAMALE. AMALE. So like Mac, MAC Mac, and then my last name, HAMALE.
Macamale.
Yep.
And because we don't compete at all, because we're two different states, you
Hey,
should
I'll follow
think
you
about
back.
Oh, boy.
you should think about starting your own podcast down there, man. Since we've done it, it's been all positive. We've got a lot of fighters exposure, so it's been cool. Think about doing your own podcast, and I think it'll go well for you.
I want to, man. I want to. I did a couple lives on Instagram with fighters and shit, and that was a lot of fun
Yeah.
during COVID because I didn't have shit else to do. Yeah, it might be something we hit up in the near future.
I've got
find the right co-host, man. You got to find the right journalist co-host, man. They don't pick them. They don't grow them on trees, brother.
I've got
Mitchell
two texts while
Chamale,
you've
man.
been
We
on from
appreciate you
people.
for joining us, brother.
For sure, man. I can talk to you guys all day. Have a good night.
Hold it down.
Bye.